All right, we are on the home stretch, last few problems. So the next few, we are going to write a linear inequality for the given graph. So we see we have a solid line here, we have this half plane shaded, and we need to write a linear inequality. So the first thing we want to do is write an equation, and then we will figure out the inequality from there. What kind of information do we need to write an equation? Well, we need the slope. And if there is one, we need the b value, and it looks like there is one here, the y-intercept. So the slope looks like we go up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. So our slope is 1. And the b value, the place where it touches the y-axis, is 3. So I can write an equation, y equals 1x plus 3. But I'm going to circle that equal sign, put a little question mark, because it's not going to stay there forever. We have to change that to an inequality, but we need to figure out what inequality symbol that's going to be. So to do that, we are going to pick a point in our shaded region and plug it in. So pick a point in the shaded region. I'm going to pick the point -2, 3. So let's go ahead and go to -2, 3. That is here. And now we're going to plug in that x and that y to our equation to figure out the inequality symbol. So plug in the y is 3. I'm going to just put a little question mark with a circle around it there because we know we want an inequality, but we don't know what it is yet. 1 times -2 plus 3. So that gives us 3 on that side. We need an inequality, and then we have -2 plus 3, and that gives me a positive 1. So now we have these two numbers, 3 and 1, and we are going to decide which inequality fits there. Is 3 bigger than 1 or is 3 less than 1? Well, we know the answer to that is that 3 is greater than 1. So that's the inequality symbol we'll use. Then we decide whether to put an equal to sign based on the line. And in this case, we've got a solid line, so we're going to put the or equal to symbol underneath it. We take this and we are going to plug it in for this equal sign. So we have y is greater than or equal to x plus 3. And that is how we start with a graph of an inequality and we write the inequality for it. We have to find the equation first, then we find the inequality part and put them together. So let's look at one more of these. Again, if I'm going too fast, pause the video so that you can catch up. We've got a dotted line this time, and so what kind of information do we need to write an equation? We need the slope, and we either need a y-intercept or a point. So first of all, the slope. It looks like we're going down 2 and over 1, so our slope's going to be -2. And then do we have a b value? No, we don't. It does not touch the y-axis, so now we are going to pick a point that's on our line. I'm going to pick the point -4, 3. And we plug it into point slope form. So that is y minus 3 equals -2 times x plus 4. It's a plus 4 because our original equation has x minus, and we're doing minus a negative. Now we want to get our equation as y equals, so let's distribute that -2. That gives me y minus 3 equals -2x minus 8. To get the y by itself, add 3 to both sides. And that gives us y equals -2x, and -8 plus 3 will give us -5. So now we have the y equals, but let's circle that equal sign because we don't want to stop there. This is not just the line, we have a half plane that's shaded, so we need to figure out the inequality there. Let's choose a point that is in our half plane. I'm going to choose the point -3, -1 here. So -3, -1, and now we plug it in. So that gives us -1. We don't know what the inequality is yet, so I'll put the little question mark. And I have -2 times -3 minus 5. So I still have -1 here. I need some type of inequality, and on this side I've got a positive 6 because negative times negative. Positive 6 minus 5 gives me a positive 1. So now we've got to figure out, is -1 greater than 1 or less than 1? And we know the answer to that is -1 is less than 1. Now we decide, is it equal to or not based on the line? The line is a dotted line, so no, it is not equal to it. So we're going to take this inequality symbol and put it into our equation. That'll give us y is less than -2x minus 5. And there is our equation. So that's how we write linear inequalities for the given graph, and I misspoke a second ago when I said that's our equation. That's our inequality, not an equation. So there's the inequality for that graph. All right, one more thing, and that is our word problem. Of course, we've got to do a word problem for this. So we have a hiking trip we're going to go on. You need to bring food and water for the hiking trip. The sum of the weight in pounds of food, so the weight of food is X, and the weight of water is Y. It cannot be more than 20 pounds. That will be too heavy for us to carry. So first of all, we want to write a linear inequality that describes the possible weights of the food and water. So we know that we have however much our food weighs and however much our water weighs. The sum of those cannot be more than 20. So sum tells us to add. We know we're going to have X, the weight of our food, plus the weight of our water, and it is compared to 20 pounds. What do we need to put here? It cannot exceed 20. That means it can't be any bigger than 20, but it can equal 20. So that means the X plus Y needs to be less than or equal to 20. So that's what our linear inequality is. Now we want to graph the inequality. So in order to graph it, first let's go ahead and scale our graph and write what the axes are. I would scale it by 2s. So we're going to start with 0, and I'm only going to write where 0, 10, and 20 are. So this would be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 12, 14, 16, 18, and 20. And I'll scale the same way on the y-axis. So it'd be 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12, 14, 16, 18, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, and 20. All right, so now we want to label our axes. We have that X is the weight in pounds of food. So that's going to be the weight in pounds of food. And Y is the weight in pounds of water. And in order to graph this, we can do a few things. We can do the process that we were doing earlier, where we found the equation, then we looked at the line and we plugged in a point. But actually what might be easier here is if we graph by finding the intercepts, because it is already in slope, or it's not slope-intercept form, it's in standard form where we have X and Y. So to find the intercepts, the X-intercept is when I plug in 0 for Y. So if I plug in 0 for Y and get rid of that, I have X is 20. Now if I find the Y-intercept, I plug in 0 for X. If I plug in 0 for X, then Y is 20. So those are my two intercepts, 20, 0, and 0, 20. And let's graph those on our graph. So we go to 20, 0, that's here, and 0, 20, that's here. Now we need to know what type of line we have, and that is going to be based on this inequality. We have the or equal to, so that's going to be a solid line. So we can draw our solid line between those 2 points. And then we need to figure out where we are going to shade. So are we going to shade in this half plane or that one? We can decide by plugging in 0, 0. So if we plug in 0, 0, then that gives us 0 plus 0 is less than or equal to 20. Is that true? Yes, it is. 0 is less than or equal to 20. So we are going to shade the half plane that includes the 0. That is this half plane. We're not going to extend our arrows past the axes because we can't bring a negative amount of food or water. All right, last thing we need to do is answer this question. Are 0, 20, and 20, 0 solutions to the inequality? Well, yes, they are. They are on the line of the inequality, so yes, they are on the line. They are solutions because they're on the line. They're included. But do those ordered pairs make sense in this situation? So this one here tells us we're bringing 20 pounds of food and 0 pounds of water. Does that make sense? To me, that does not, because we have to have water to survive. All right, what about this one? Does this make sense? Can I bring 20 pounds of water and no pounds of food? That also sounds foolish because we need food to survive as well on our hike. So no, neither of these make sense because you would want to bring both. You'd want to bring both food and water to be able to survive on the hike. So that wraps up the 8.5 notes. I've got a few more questions for you. Do not forget to hit submit at the end, because if you don't hit submit, then I won't get your data and you will get a 0, and that would not be good. So don't forget to hit submit, and I hope you have a great rest of your weekend.